decided to do a video on how we saved for our 3-month round the world trip. We've had a few people ask recently how we did come up with the money initially for the trip, so we thought we'd do this video today and actually give you guys a little bit of insight into how we did it.
First, we want to start off and tell you about our situation. So we were paying rent, we were both working full-time, we were buying our own groceries, public transport, and all those sorts of things. So we did have quite a few expenses to pay, and we still managed to save enough money to go on a 3-month trip. We only really started saving in about June last year, so probably within about 6 months we'd had enough to go on this 3-month trip. So just to let you guys know, we thought we'd tell you that first, just to let you know that it is achievable to be able to save enough money to go on a 3-month trip within about 6 months.
So I think a big part of saving for this trip was really putting it as a priority. I know for everyone this isn't always possible to make travel a priority, but I think it's really important if you're saving and you're dedicating your money to a particular trip, it's the way to do it and it's the way to prioritize things. So instead of, going out to dinner every night, going out for drinks, buying clothes, that sort of thing, we were making this the priority out of everything that we had going on in our life at the time. So we really did make it the main thing we were going to be saving towards and making it our main goal.
So first up, we just want to start with a bit of a breakdown on how we actually save. So we didn't have just 1 or 2 ways of saving money, we actually had multiple ways of how we saved our money for this trip. Like I said a bit earlier in this video, we were both working full-time jobs, however they were both minimum wage jobs, so we weren't making a lot of income. So we had to come up with some creative ways to make our money go a little bit further, and one of them was using the app called Acorns.
It's a really great way to save money if you don't particularly like using cash to spend money on things and you like using your card, because the money that actually gets put into the savings account you really don't miss, and we found that we didn't miss that money at all. It would be 50 cents here and there, or if you basically spend $2 on something, they'll round a whole extra $1 into that savings account. So it's just here and there that the money gets taken out of your account, and it might be $20, $30 depending on how much you spend. And you can actually have the option to invest money each week as well. So I think we started off slow and then kind of built it up the more that we saved. So I think first off we might have put in maybe $5 a week and opted to put that in on top of our roundups. And then I think Dan got up to about...
I think it was about $30 or $40 a week I was putting in. That was coming straight out of my bank account and put into it, and I wasn't really missing it because as soon as I was getting paid for my job, it basically went into the account the same day. So I didn't really miss the money at all.
The money can fluctuate a little bit in your Acorns account, so once you do get money put in there, they do put certain parts of it into shares, and they're usually into blue chip shares, so they're generally a little bit more stable and you kind of know where your money's going a bit more. But yeah, it was just so good. The money did really well for us. I think at the end of the year, after about 6 months of investing in Acorns, I ended up with around $500 to $600.
And I ended up with a bit more than that. I think I was more about $980 to $1,000 between that. So it wasn't like a great amount of money, but over 6 months, it did add up to quite a bit in the long run.
We really focused on that for our spending money in particular. We kept sort of thinking as long as we were investing into that account, by the end of the year we would have that bit extra spending money that we could take overseas with us, and we're so glad we did because we really did need that money in the end, and it was just such a great way to do it. So we'd highly recommend it if you're struggling to find ways to save. This is a way that's not so heavy-handed, I guess you could call it. It's quite easy to do and you don't really miss the money that you're putting away.
If you like, we can have a referral code down the bottom. If you click that, you will get $2.50 into your account straight away when you sign up. So the next tip only applied to me. I was working in a hospitality job and I was making tips on a regular basis. So it wasn't like a lot of money, but it was maybe $20 a day, maybe a little bit less, maybe a bit more. So every day when I got tips, I would actually keep those tips, instead of spending them, put them into a money jar at home, and then I would just save them up. And then by the end of the year, I think I had probably about $1,000 in tips just from a $5 note here or a $10 note there, and some coins. Another thing that I also did was, if I ever had to pull money out of an ATM because a restaurant or whatever didn't take FPOS for whatever reason, I would keep the change and put it into that jar as well. So those two things combined ended up making me about $1,000 by the end of the year.
And it would have been really easy for Dan to go and spend that $20 on, say, lunch every day, or to spend it on dinner somewhere. Or really just easy to spend that $20 he was earning in his pocket each day. But for him to go and put that aside every day into a jar, that was just one of the best ways he could have done it, because once again, that was spending money that he could use at the end of the year when we were really looking to gather all that spending money together. That was just another way of getting revenue, I guess. So the third point that we're going to touch on today is the fact that we didn't really buy clothes for a year. And this was a very hard thing for me to do. I do like my shopping, and I kind of understood that it was going to be 6 months of continuously saving. So for most of the year, I didn't really buy any clothes because we had a trip prior to this even. So we were saving for that too. So afterwards, when we were saving for this trip, I was still continuously not buying clothes, because that can really add up. You know, I'd say for me, I would usually spend money on clothes every couple of months. And you know, you go on those little shopping sprees that might be, you know, $200-300 worth or more. So I really tried to avoid that, and I got very good at window shopping and just looking a lot. Dan doesn't have this problem so much. He is pretty good with saving his money in that sense, but for me, with my shopping and my love for shopping, it was hard to do, but you know, I did manage to do it. And when it really comes down to it, it's just clothing. And I mean, you're always going to have another chance to buy clothes, but you're not always going to have a chance to do a really big 3-month trip around the world. So I kind of put that as my priority and pushed the shopping to the side for a while.
So the next one is a really big one for a lot of people, and especially us as well. We are massive coffee drinkers.
Addiction.
So what we did, instead of buying coffee from a cafe or a restaurant or whatever for the whole 6 months, I ended up at work just making instant coffee. Or if I did have to buy a coffee, I would go down to 7-Eleven and buy a $1 coffee. So instead of buying a $3.50 or $4 coffee every single day, I would either buy a $1 coffee or just make an instant coffee. You know, it's maybe not as great as that $3.50 coffee, but over a longer period of time, it would have saved a lot of money, which it did for our trip.
And I mean, this was really hard for us too, because we were living in Melbourne, and Melbourne's pretty known for its coffee, so, you know, we got really addicted to buying coffee there. So I think when this trip came along, we were like, okay, not a priority anymore. We can go without the $3.50, $4 coffee. So yeah, 7-Eleven coffee is really, I personally think it's really decent. I don't know what it is elsewhere in the world, but as we've been traveling, we've seen 7-Eleven seems to have coffees for a very cheap amount, I guess, or instant coffee. And you know, that's just something that you have to deal with. It's one less luxury that you're buying all the time, and it was pretty easy for us to do, I think.
Before we actually booked this trip, we actually went to Japan and South Korea. So a couple of months before that, in about January 2017, we actually opened a high interest savings account with our bank. So with that, we saved our money into that account, which was originally used for the Japan and South Korea trip, but we just extended that and then continued it on and for this trip as well. So we started off by putting about $500 a month into that account each, $500 each. And as we gradually went along, we continued to put more and more money into that savings account.
And $500 might sound like a lot, which it is per month. That's huge for both of us to have put that in. But I think we just did it whenever we got paid. I used to get paid monthly, so I used to kind of get like this chunk of money and just straight away put the $500 in the bank account. And even Dan getting paid weekly, it was a little bit hard for him. He had to sort of section off his money and make sure he was putting that $500 away a month. We didn't do this for the whole 6 months. We did it for probably about the first 4 months. We were putting about $500 away, and then it sort of teetered off towards the end of the year when we were trying to save for a couple of other things to go overseas with. But yeah, it was definitely hard for the first few months. But I think if you just look at it logically and think, well, if I put $500 away now, then I'm not going to be spending $500 on coffees, clothing, you know, whatever it might be, dinners out, drinks. You're just going to be putting that straight into your savings account, and you know it's going to be working for you that way. So the next point we're going to touch on is actually about luxuries. And obviously we've already gone through a couple of them, like coffee and shopping and all the rest of it. But another one that we found kind of difficult at first was eating out. Dan and I love food. It's like one of our favourite things ever. And we love eating out together, and that was one thing that we really had to cut out quite a bit. So luxuries like that, and along with shopping and buying expensive things, we weren't going to be spending $30 a meal anymore. It was just not going to happen. If we went out, which, every now and then we would go out, because to not spend any money for 6-7 months is like really, really hard.
I think it's impossible.
And mentally that kind of like drains you out, especially when you're working, say, 50-hour weeks at times, you're getting paid this money and most of it's going towards something that you can't even do anything with or see anything, and you know what I mean. So I think for food and eating out, we'd stick to something that was going to be like $15 a meal instead of $30 a meal. And it wouldn't be a luxurious restaurant. It would just be something casual, or maybe getting a coffee on a weekend or something like that. Just something a little bit more affordable that we knew wasn't going to eat into our budget too much. The next point is going to be about finding different revenue streams. Now for me, I was working full-time, and as was Dan, and I am actually a fashion photographer, a freelance fashion photographer, but the job that I had was more like a full-time travel agency job. So I was trying to pick up jobs on the side that was going to be pertaining to photo shoots and e-commerce and that sort of thing. But I was also trying to find other streams that I could make really lucrative for me. I was selling my own presets, which I still do on my website. I was also doing some surveys, which Dan was doing as well. And if you do some surveys, they can actually add up to about, I think it was about $50 we were getting from that. So the particular site we used for surveys was Pureprofile. So we've linked that down below in the description. And that was really good. So you can earn up to about $50, I think, per month, but you can only withdraw every 2 months. So it's a little bit of a shame that way, but it's still $50 extra for basically filling in some surveys. And when it was really quiet at work, or when I was doing nothing at home, I'd just fill in a survey, and that's just extra money that you can be adding towards your trip fund, and we found it really, really good that way. I also did some retouching jobs and tried to pick up more of those as I went along, and YouTube AdSense was also an extra for me. So I tried to get as many little revenue streams as possible. I know this isn't possible for everyone. Not everyone's going to be doing YouTube and photography, but anything that you sort of have a passion for, I feel like there's always a way that you can try and make a little bit of extra money on the side from that. So maybe that's something you guys could do a little bit of research on. If you have a particular passion or something that you really love doing, maybe find out how to make a bit of a side business from it, or just some extra money from it. Whether it be tutorials or coaching or something like that in your field, that's always a really good way to make some extra money for your trip.
One of the biggest expenses that we both had was having a car each. So I had a car and Kayleigh had a car. Everyone knows how expensive a car can be. You got to pay for petrol, you got to pay for a service, you got to pay for insurance, you got to pay registration. All those things add up. So what we tried to do as much as possible, it wasn't always possible. We tried to use public transport as much as we could, and we walked everywhere that we were able to walk to. So we tried to leave the car at home as much as possible, so we weren't spending more money on petrol and things like that.
Yeah, there were times in Melbourne where on the weekends, you'd like to go and do something, and we sort of wanted to get outside, so we just walk a lot of the time. We just go for really big walks. I know one day we went from Coburg in Melbourne, if you guys know where that is, all the way down to
South Yarra.
Yeah, South Yarra. So
it goes in further.
That was a massive walk actually, but I mean, it's really good, and it's keeping you fit too. It's good exercise, so you're saving money and keeping fit.
Our next tip. Because we stopped going out to restaurants more often and getting things like Uber Eats, what we did instead was we cooked a lot more often. We were cooking basically every night of the week, and we would prepare our meals and plan our meals ahead so that we didn't have to go and buy more groceries and things like that. So we were always prepared, we always knew what we were going to have for dinner, and we stuck to that kind of habit of cooking for ourselves and saving money that way.
In buying groceries as well, we did stop buying a little bit more meat than usual. We're not technically strictly vegetarians or anything, but we did start eating more of a plant-based diet because meat is really expensive, and especially in Australia. I don't know about other places in the world, but for us, to get certain parts of meat, it would be like $20, $30, $40 depending on what you get. So we just kind of started to cut that out a little bit more, and we'd buy instead maybe like a roast chicken, or we'd buy ingredients for soups throughout winter. We really love doing like a lot of vegetable soups and vegetable based stir fries and that sort of thing. That stuff is really cheap to buy. And it's always good if it's easy, because I'm not the best cook, so I'm going to be straight up honest about that. But we did find ways to get around spending a lot of money on groceries as well, and that was just one of the ways that we figured to do it.
Really hope that these tips have been able to help you. These are the things that we did. We didn't do anything special. We didn't win lotto or anything like that.
I wish.
This is just what we did. We highly recommend making travel a priority if you really want to do it, and being disciplined enough to actually stick to it. Every little bit counts, so you don't have to go like full on like $500 a week straight away into your savings account, or just cut off buying things altogether. Think of any other tips for us to use in the future. We would love to hear them. Let us know in the comments below.
So if you guys like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and if you haven't subscribed to our channel already, please do, because we've got lots of travel vlogs coming up. We're actually not going to disclose our location at the moment because we haven't actually gotten up to date with the vlogs yet. So we've got heaps more to come though with our vlogs, including Iceland and Canada. So stay tuned for those, and follow us if you want to keep up with the adventures.
Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. We will see you next time.
Bye.